Hey everybody, welcome back to the 80s Slashers YouTube channel. In this video, I will be discussing and reviewing the 1987 film American Gothic. We're going to take a look at the plot of the film, the setting, the kills, the nudity. We'll take a look at this little DVD itself before wrapping it all up with some final thoughts. So if you've been following this channel, you'll know that just about 2 weeks prior, I made a video that I titled my list of shame, my list of 80s slashers films that I've never seen, and I've been putting off for way too long. So in that video, this obviously made it. This was one of the films listed. So, after making that video, I decided I'm just going to go ahead and just watch it because it was the only video, the only film on that list that I actually owned some sort of physical copy of. So, um, yeah, so I just went ahead and watched it right away, basically after making that video, and I'm really glad I did because I'll just say it right off the bat. I really enjoyed this film. What's interesting is the reasons why I enjoyed it. Because honestly, if I was judging this film on its merits, as fitting in as an 80s slasher, just plain and simple, it might not have fared so well. But luckily for American Gothic, there's a whole lot there's a whole lot more going on with this film. Yeah, so like I said, we'll talk about all that, but before we do, let's just jump right into this and let's talk about the plot. All right, so American Gothic. Basically, this film opens up. We get to see like a couple, and there's one of the main girl. She's we see that she's having some issues. She's at like a hospital, like a mental issue, like a mental psychiatric type of hospital ward. And she had some past trauma. She lost a child through a tragic accident, and she's trying to deal with that. So we see that, and they're trying to move past this couple. They're trying to move past that. So they're like, well, they're gonna go on a trip. So they get together with a bunch of their friends. I believe there's 6 of them in total, and they get on this little plane, this little bush plane, the type that can land on water. And they're going off to a camping, I guess, at like at some certain island, like a vacation spot, just to kind of rest and relax in the woods. On their way, of course, the plane has some engine problems, and they have to emergency land on this some unknown island. So they crash land, or they don't crash. They land on the island. They all get off, and the pilot mechanic, the plane mechanic, is like, yeah, we're gonna be here for the night. I can't fix this. So they start off. They have a good night by the campfire, all this stuff, and they have a fun time. Um, but then eventually the next day, he's like, "Oh, I'm gonna be here longer. You guys have to go and look, see if there's anything on this island." So they explore, and they come across like an old. I don't. This isn't it here, I don't think. But they come across an old, like a house, an old cabin, and yeah, they get introduced um to the people who live there eventually, and like the house itself is like stuck in time from like the 1930s, 1940s, and the people living there, they call them Ma and Pa. Um, and they're an old-fashioned family. And yeah, once you meet the family, there's some children that get introduced slowly, one by one. We slowly get to meet the whole family. And then a whole bunch of weirdness starts going on. They start realizing that this family is um weird. They're creepy. There's some stuff going on, and then of course, there's like a clash of like old school, like these old people and these young people want to have fun and party, and the guys want to sleep with the girls, and they don't want it. So they come at odds, and eventually the killing starts, and people start getting killed, and the whole time it just keeps getting weirder and weirder. And then eventually there's like a really cool shift, like I don't know if you want to call it a twist or a reveal, but there's like a shift in tone, like in the last end of the film, and it plays out to a really good conclusion. So that's basically the way the film is structured. It's yeah, it's pretty good. It's pretty good. Now the I'll say this, I enjoyed a lot of the different plot points. Um, the first thing, like I said, is the backstory of one of the main characters and like the trauma that they dealt with, and it's they keep flashing back to some of the like they slowly show you what this trauma was, and it's messed up. It's like if you're it deals with kids. I don't want to get into anything like that, but I don't want to get into like spoilers or whatnot, but it deals with parenting and kids and like the loss of a child, and it kind of shows what happened, and it's messed up. Like as myself, I'm a father. I have small children, and yeah, it's disturbing. It's like you just the thought of it is yeah, it's terrible. And but you know it pays off. Like you see this, and later in the film, being shown these flashbacks and how it's messing with this person's mental stability, it really pays off in the end. So I love how that works out. Another thing I really like is just the fact that they're like this is like a plane crash victim, like that premise, like it's a cool premise. Like they're on and their plane crashes, they're stranded on an island, they don't know where they're at, and it's great because even before all the craziness starts and the killing starts, these people are already in a desperate situation. They're like, what are we gonna do? We're on this island, and it's just it's a cool premise for the film to be framed around. And then once you introduce the crazy folk, it gets even crazier. So I really liked that. It works really well. And like I said, once the family is introduced, this turns it turns into a completely different style of film. Like we'll talk about it more, but there's lots of different styles of horror film that this turns into. Now the family, like the main star is like is actually like the crazy family in this film. Like the six younger people having fun, having a good time. They're almost like the side characters compared to like the main family. And this family is messed up in so many different ways, as we slowly see. At first you just see that they're religious, they're very devout. They follow their religion to a T. No, no cursing. They say grace at the table. You can't sleep with a woman if you're not married, all that sort of stuff. And they're hard line about it. So that's kind of like edgy. Like it's kind of seeing that as like, okay, this is kind of crazy, bordering on crazy. Um, but then when you meet the children, these children, like these are all people. Their children are like in their 40s, maybe even close to 50, and they act like they're like 5, 10 years old, and it's very off-putting to watch. They're dressed like little girls. Like the one girl, Fanny, she's dressed like a 10-year-old. She's like, I'm having my 11th birthday party. I'm gonna have a party, and she has dollies and toys, and it's weird, man. It's really creepy. So that's really disturbing. And then there's like some hints at like incest that it just briefly touched on, but there is some incest things brought up, which is weird. There's like imagery of like dead babies used as like dolls. Really strange, and you see it, and it's creepy as hell. And then we even get into like at the end there's some like necrophilia going on, I think. Yeah, this family is really messed up, really strange, but strangely entertaining to watch. And it works because of the acting. The acting in this film, from like the family, they're amazing. As you can see here, Rod Steiger, who's he's been in a ton of stuff. He's really good. He's really good. Uh, Yvonne De Carlo plays Ma, She's from the Munsters, very stern. She kind of reminds me of like Kathy Bates from Misery. She kind of has that look, just very stern. You don't want to mess with her. Um, and then Fanny, the daughter, is played by an actress named Janet Wright. And if you're Canadian, maybe not just Canadian, but Canadian, you'll recognize her from, there's like a comedy show called Corner Gas. She played the mother. Um, in Corner Gas. It was a comedy sitcom. And it's just I saw her in this. I'm like, oh my goodness, because I loved the Corner Gas show, and she's like, it's comedy. She's a comedic role in that, and it ran for a long time, and I've seen all the episodes and all that stuff. So it's strange seeing her in this, and she's not that much younger because she was older in that show, but she's like 40 or 50 in this. But she's playing like a 10-year-old character. It's amazing, really good. And there's an actor called Michael Pollard. He's not as famous, but you probably recognize him from like things like Star Trek. He was in Bonnie and Clyde. He was in a bunch of stuff. He's just one of those character actors that you always see. Really good. And again, perfect to play this childlike role. Uh, yeah, so all of these performances are just, they're great performances. They're fantastic, and it just added so much creepiness and weirdness to the film. They just nailed it. It was great. So now, like the question that I had with this when I'm watching this is this a slasher film? I would say it qualifies because, we'll talk about them later, but because of the kills, like the type of kills we get in this film, and just some of the formula that is used is um is definitely has those slasher elements, like just like the teenagers going off, being isolated, being hunted and killed one by one. There's like a final person at the end. um, they're drinking, they're partying, people disapprove of them. There was like a prior evil with like the trauma kind of thing. Like there's elements here, so it definitely qualifies. But this falls for me anyway. It falls more within like the creepy, just like a general creepy horror film. Um, based around like a family dynamic, kind of like Texas Chainsaw Massacre. There's a lot of similar tones to that, um, you know, strangers from outside come and invade this family's private space, and they have their own dynamics working. They're not cannibals like the Texas Chainsaw Massacre people, but they got their own things going on. So yeah, it's kind of that mold. So half Texas Chainsaw, half slasher. In Texas Chainsaw, is it a slasher? Same thing. It's one of those borderline films for me anyway. So yeah, now once the conclusion of this film happens, like I said, there was like a switch in tone. Like one of the characters, like motivations, um, it switches kind of perspectives, and it's really interesting. I don't know if I've ever seen it too often like this before. I don't want to get into it because it's kind of the way it happens. It happens pretty organically, and because of like some of like the prior plot points and like the backstory and all that stuff, it seems like it's like you believe it, you buy it, like it just seems really natural that it occurs. And because of that, it works really well. Um, it's just yeah, I don't know if I've seen it too often like this, and it's great. And then it kind of switches again near the like even closer to the end. There's a couple tone changes. I don't know. It's really good, and it like I said, it adds an extra level. Like when that shift happens, it adds an extra level of like creepiness on top of what is already a really creepy, weird film. So yeah, American Gothic is not. I wasn't expecting this sort of film, but I mean that in a good way because this is it's really unique. It's pretty original, and it just for me anyway, it worked really well for what they were going for and what they ended up doing with the film. But like I said, it still fits within the slasher genre. There's just a whole lot more here. All right, that's enough about the plot here. Let's move on and let's take a look at the setting. Okay, so American Gothic. This is a Canadian film, despite the title, American Gothic. It's like I think it's like a name of a painting that's very similar. Um, I don't know if they picked the title just because of the cover or whatever it is, but it's a Canadian film filmed in British Columbia. Even though there was a quick reference, they're saying that they're from Seattle, so it's almost like they're trying to hide the fact that it was made in Canada, America. I don't know why they would do that, but BC, Seattle, it's the same area, so it could pass for Seattle for sure. But the main setting of this is, I would say it's an outdoor horror film. In the opening, like the opening few shots of this, we get some really beautiful aerial shots of them on their plane flying from, like, from the mainland, British Columbia, out into the islands off the coast. And it's just a couple of minutes, but it's beautiful. It's like such beautiful land over there. Um, just green islands and like nice water, like on the Pacific Ocean. It's really good. It's a fantastic, just like in terms of like scenery, it's great. And then once they land on the island, like, which is like kind of the main setting, they're stranded on this island. Again, it's mostly outdoors. It's about 50-50, but it's mostly outdoors on this island, and it's great. It's such a good setting to set one of these films, and it doesn't feel like they're in the woods, but it doesn't feel like it's one of those like deep woods slashers like Just Before Dawn or The Forest. Don't Go in the Woods, kind of those things where like they hike way up into the mountains, way up into the woods, and you're like stranded up there. There's nothing around there. This doesn't feel like that because there's always the water right there. There's like the houses and cabins on the island. But because it is an island, there is still that strong sense of isolation because their plane broke down and they're literally stranded. And you feel that sense of isolation, which which is great. It's really good. Now, the other half of the setting, like I said, takes place mostly inside the this family's house. When they first get there, like they're joking about it. It's like, oh man, this place is stuck in like the 1930s, 1940s. Um, and they spend a lot of time in it. They sleep in the house, they have dinner in the house, and it's all by candlelight, and it's creepy. It's really weird because it's religious, ornaments and whatnot around, and like old toys and creepy cribs and the clothing. It just really adds like an old timey creepy feel. I don't know how else to explain it, but it's a good, and they go in the house and they go back out in the woods and they go back in the house, so it's pretty equally shared. Um, and I don't know, it's just it works really well between like the two main settings, I guess, for the film. So yeah, I really dug this setting overall. It just um, the the way they divided it between the woods and the house, it just worked really well. I don't know, it seemed, um, I don't know, it was, yeah, it was just a good setting. I just really enjoyed it. There's a lot of really creepy, like disturbing imagery that we see mostly inside the house. Some of the stuff outside because there's some weird old like swing sets which we'll talk about. Everything's just old and decrepit and like from a bygone era, you know. It just has that feel, and it just fits the tone of the rest of the movie. It works really well. So yeah, so in terms of setting, I really liked it. It was good. All right, let's move on and take a look at the kills. Okay, so American Gothic has a total of 10 kills, which, that's definitely a solid number. However, it feels, I'll be honest, it feels like it was less for some reason. It didn't feel like there was like 10 really solid, good kills. And we'll talk about that in a second, but the first kill in this film, it doesn't happen until like 40 minutes in. So they took their time and they went with like the character development, and there was a lot of characters. There's like the six people on the plane, and then the family had another five people, and yeah, we kind of got to know most of them. So they really took their time with the character development until 40 minutes is when like the violence starts to erupt. And I don't usually prefer that. I usually want some kills at the beginning and pretty consistently throughout these types of films. But for this one, it works really well. I think that was the correct choice because, like I said, this family is like the linchpin of this whole film, and we really have to get to know them and understand their mindset. And then once the violence occurs, then you're like, okay, like obviously you saw it coming, it makes sense. And yeah, I think, like I said, for this type of film, the pacing for the kills, I think it was the right choice. Now, the kills themselves, they're not typical of, the slasher genre. Most of them occur off screen. There's no real practical effects. There's not a lot of blood or gore. Like, there is some blood, but it's kind of like the after effect kill when you see the dead body. But um, they're still really fun because these kills are just they're really unique and creative. Um, they're fun. There's no other way to explain them. They're just kind of fun to watch, even though you don't get the gore. Um, there are a few kills with the typical bladed weapons and whatnot, but what we get in this film is usually kills by different means. We get a kill. I guess you would call it like death by swing, like a children's swing. Like a swing, like a children's swing. So there's a death by swing, which is super fun. That was such a good scene. It's one of the like the most. I think it's one of the most iconic kills from this film. But it's so good. There's death by like sewing needles. There's death by skipping rope. There's like a weird unicorn toy with like the unicorn horn or unicorn horn being used. Yeah, it's just there's like children's toys are the weapons, and they're used in various different ways. And it's like I said, we don't always see the actual kill occurring, but you get the gist of it, and it's they're fun and creative. It's just yeah, I don't it's just they're just really fun to watch, and I like I said, I guess if you aren't going to use like all these like the typical bloody, gory practical effects for these, I think this is the next best thing is just to make the kills fun to watch, and that's what they do. They're definitely memorable, and they're fun to watch. Yeah. Now the killers themselves, like I said, there's no big twist reveal. You know who's killing, who's doing all the killing. There is a little twist at the end. Um, but yeah, like the killers themselves, they're really good just because they're crazy. They're creepy, demented people, and when things don't go their way or they lose their mind, they start killing, and it's yeah, it's entertaining because they're maybe they're killing for religious purposes, or maybe they're killing because they were getting teased. It's just it's they're crazy. They're deranged, and it's fun to watch. So again, not your typical slasher type of killers, but very very entertaining. Now, like I said, the last 20 minutes of this film, like I've talked about it earlier, but it takes like this twist or this turn, and the kills and the plot, um, they get even weirder at this point. Like the last 20 minutes on, it just everything kind of gets ramped up, and it's like a 180, and it's yeah, it like I said, it's not typical, but I really enjoyed it. I really because of that. Um, they were it was a good way to end the film. And like the once the shift happens, the kills they're again they're creative, they're fun. Um, yeah, I in terms of kills for American Gothic, not what you typically expect, but because of the creativity and the uniqueness, they're fun, and I can't knock them for that. So I definitely had a good time with the kills in this film. All right, let's move on and talk about the nudity. All right, so American Gothic has zero nudity, nothing. And really, there was not even um, a moment there was actually there was one moment, I guess, that we see a girl who is kind of her shirt is ripped off, and you kind of see her in her bra briefly. But it's not really like it's a titillating moment because it's during like a weird like necrophilia scene. It's really odd. So it's not like you're like, oh, this is there's no titillation involved. I can't imagine any kids in the 80s were. Maybe they were because you get to see a girl in her bra, I guess, and maybe I don't know, 13-year-old boy in 1988 or 89 was I don't know. Um, but yeah, it's a weird scene, just like the whole film. So if yeah, seeing necrophilia, um, I think necrophilia, like you don't see everything, but that's what it was, pointing to. So um, yeah, I don't know. That's it. There's nothing to talk about for Nudity, so let's just move on and talk about the DVD. All right, so this DVD I have, I don't even know who makes this. Trinity. I found this at the dollar store. My up here in Canada we have a store called Dollarama, and sometimes at Halloween they get some scary Blu-rays and DVDs in, and it's usually crap. But a couple years ago, maybe a year, not last Halloween, the Halloween before, I saw this sitting on the shelf for like $1 or $2, whatever it was, and yeah, I was pumped, so I grabbed it. Um, there is the best way to watch this film. Scream Factory released a Blu-ray of this. That's clearly the best way to watch this film. But I'll say this DVD, this looked really good. It's pretty bare bones. You get the disc, and there's no reversible cover art, I'm assuming. Yeah. There's no special features. They say there's Fanny, creepy Fanny. Full screen presentation. The audio's English 2.0 Dolby Digital. You can pick your scenes, interactive menus, digitally mastered. Yeah, so no special features, but it looked really good. I was surprised how good this looked. There was no print damage. It was a really clean image. I was quite surprised, and the audio sounded fine. So I'm assuming if you grab the Screen Factory Blu-ray, I'm assuming that's gonna look really good because just of how good this is. Because I feel like the source material for this film must be in fantastic shape. So if Screen Factory got their hands on it and did a really good um, scan of it, I'm thinking this is a really good looking Blu-ray. So I kind of want to grab it now just because of how good this looked. But at the same time, this looked good, so I don't know if I need the Blu-ray. But I don't know. There's probably some special features, obviously. So yeah, that's definitely the way to go. But I don't know. I've seen some other people online with this. I don't know if this was like the before the Screen Factory Blu-ray, if this was the only way to get this film on DVD. I don't know if there's other versions. Obviously you can get it on VHS. Probably pricey, but yeah, I don't know. This is very surprising. What year is this from? Let me see if I can track a year down. Yeah, of course it doesn't say. It doesn't say what year this DVD came out. 2004. So it's pretty old. It's been out for a while. But yeah, if you ever come across this for a few bucks, like at a used store, pawn shop, or thrift store, whatever, definitely grab it. This is your only option. If on eBay, maybe it looked really good. It really did. So, yeah, if you can get this for a lot cheaper than the Screen Factory Blu-ray, I definitely recommend this version. If you don't mind watching full screen, it looked really good. All right, let's move on. Let's wrap this up with some final thoughts. Okay, so yeah, I really liked American Gothic. I thought it was it turned out to be much better than I thought it was going to be. I don't know why. I didn't have the impression that I wasn't going to like it. I kind of knew that it was a little different than your typical 80s slasher, but I just didn't know what it involved. And yeah, I like this a lot better than I thought it was going to be. Like I said, it's not your typical 80s slasher by any means, but there is enough there with some of the kills, the way the kills are laid out, just the way the film itself is structured. that for me at least, it definitely qualifies as an 80s slasher. It's just on, the fringe elements. There's a lot else. There's a lot more going on within this film. There this like I said, this is more of like your standard creepy, weird horror film. That just kind of has, a good amount of slasher elements, I would say. Yeah, like I said, the story is really good. The backstory itself is disturbing, and it really pays off at the end. Like they really set up that backstory to really make the climax that much more entertaining, and they pulled it off really well, in my opinion. The setting is great. You get the hybrid between like the outdoor, the island isolation, and then the old creepy, old timey religious house. Yeah, and then the kills. Like I said, they're not your typical kills. Yeah, but they're still really fun. They're unique, creative. Death by swing, death by skipping rope. They're fun. They match the film really well. But honestly, the star of the show is the acting, the family, the creepy, weird vibe that this cast gives off in portraying these characters. There's really some cringe-worthy moments and just there's some really messed up, like disturbing images that you see on screen that just are yeah, they're definitely creepy, and just the acting, some of the looks and the lines and just the motivations of these characters. It's fun. It's definitely it's unique for sure. So, in terms of recommendations, yeah, I'm definitely going to recommend American Gothic for like again, it's not your typical 80s slasher, but there's enough there um, in terms of slasher elements that it fits, and but there's a lot else going on, and it's good. It's a really unique film, definitely definitely worth your time. And if you can track down the Screen Factory Blu-ray, you definitely should. But if not, this is a good DVD to have as well. All right, that's it. That's my thoughts and review on 1987's American Gothic. So hope you guys all stuck around and enjoyed that. And yeah, all right, until next time. All right, see ya.